Hello, welcome again. As you can see by the title, it's a grey morning in July. July is the middle of winter in Goulburn, or it's one of the winter months in Goulburn, and I've just been running this morning and now I'm on my way home, so I thought I'd take a bit of a ride around and show you a bit of the scenery and talk about whatever came to mind. And so I'm going to talk about electric vehicles and some alternatives to electric vehicles. So if that's not something you're terribly interested in, then just turn down the volume and enjoy the scenery. Otherwise, tune in, and if you've got some comments that you'd like to make, then by all means add them to the comments section of the video. So electric vehicles seem to be, or enthusiasm, I guess is the word for electric vehicles, seems to be divided into three camps. There are those people who are the early adopters of electric vehicles, who've already bought their electric vehicle and love it and just can't tell you how good it is and can't stop telling you how good it is. They are referred to derisively by others as the electric vehicle fanboys, and they just love their electric vehicles and they think they're the greatest thing since the wheel was invented. There is a second group, which I think is most people, that are in the camp of, well, I don't really know much about them and I'm ambivalent towards them at the moment. I have no feelings one way or the other. I haven't thought about buying an electric vehicle at the moment. When I come around to buying my next car, then I'll think about that compared to what I currently have, what else is available on the market, what I can get for the money I'm prepared to spend, what sort of deal I can get on my trade-in and so forth. So those are the large group of people in the middle. And then there's another group of people who are just as extreme in their disdain and hatred of electric vehicles as are the fanboys in their love for electric vehicles. Those who are disdainful of electric vehicles are most vehement and vociferous in their complaints about electric vehicles, and to be fair, some of the things that they say about electric vehicles are true. The first thing that is said is that electric vehicles claim to be zero emissions. And that is true at the tailpipe, because there is no tailpipe. But those who are opposed to electric vehicles claim that in fact there are more emissions created during the production and transportation of the electric vehicle and all of its componentry, or all of its components, than there are created in the production of a combustion vehicle. They further say that the owners of electric vehicles cannot say, well, even if that is true, and they don't accept, that is, the fanboys don't accept that statement is true, but they say even if it was true, then those extra emissions would be offset by the zero emissions over the lifetime of the vehicle. Those who are vehemently opposed say no, that's not the case, and those zero emissions during the driving cycle of the car, or driving period of the car, do not offset the emissions created in its production. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm saying I simply do not know. But it is true that during the manufacture of the steel and all the other components and the transportation of the batteries and all the bits and pieces that make a car, that there are emissions created by the production of electric vehicles. It is equally true that there are no emissions at the tailpipe. And a point that we need to consider is this. Some countries have made decisions that as of dates into the 2030s, they are going to ban the sale of new internal combustion engine vehicles in their countries. One country that has made that decision and appears determined to follow through with it is the UK, but other countries in Europe have made similar decisions. They've made that decision based on the fact that whatever vehicles are available beyond the date when the ban comes into effect must have zero emissions at the tailpipe. Now, that means that there will continue to be a second-hand market for combustion vehicles until all the combustion vehicles on the roads in that country have gone. And judging by Australia's experience, we have something like 21 million light passenger and light commercial vehicles. That is the cars that you and I drive, including the SUVs and 4x4 utes that are now reclassified as light commercial vehicles. There are 21 million of those on our roads, and we sell about 1.2 million every year. So if from some mythical date in the future when combustion engine vehicles were banned, we had a replacement of one for one, it would still take something like 20 years before all of the combustion engine vehicles were off the road. But if that is to be the case and somebody wants a new vehicle after the 2030s and it can't be a combustion engine vehicle because there can be no emissions, what are the alternatives? That's the big question. If the electric vehicle is not the answer, and I'm not by any means suggesting it is, I'm simply saying if it isn't the answer, then what are the alternatives? Two alternatives that are talked about a lot but have yet to really see the light of day in any serious way are the hydrogen vehicle and the ammonia powered vehicle. Now the hydrogen vehicles apparently are already in existence. I'm aware that, for example, Hyundai make a hydrogen powered vehicle. It has an extraordinary range of 1,000 kilometres on a tank of hydrogen, and there's no issue with how far it will go. The issues are two things. Number one, the price. It is extraordinarily expensive simply because there are very few of them in production. And it should be noted here that in the half-year sales of all new vehicles in Australia to June 2024, where 600,000 new vehicles were sold, a total of 7. Yes, 7 hydrogen vehicles were sold. And I suspect most of those were probably sold to the ACT government, because everywhere in the ACT is 20 minutes from anywhere, and there is a hydrogen refilling station that the ACT government maintains for exactly that purpose. So the big issue with hydrogen vehicles is that they are at a stage now where electric vehicles were when the first Teslas came out, which was about 12, 15 years ago. So they've got a lot of catching up to do if they are going to be a serious contender. Now it's true that they have no emissions at the tailpipe except water, and no one will be upset if a vehicle is producing water, surely, but they're not at a serious production level yet, and they're not at an affordable level either. There is an issue though with how the hydrogen is produced. It is very expensive, I gather, to produce hydrogen for fuel, and if it's produced from coal or gas, then the same greenhouse gases we're concerned about coming out the tailpipe of your car are produced. And unless those gases are captured somehow and stored by carbon sequestration or something like that, you have exactly the same issue as you had with the emissions that come out of the tailpipe of your car. So it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to say, well, we'll get rid of petrol, we'll get rid of hydrocarbon fuel, and we'll have hydrogen fuel, and for the hydrogen fuel there'll be gases made that'll go into the atmosphere, but they won't come out of the tailpipe of the car, so we won't worry about those. That doesn't seem to solve the problem. The second fuel source that's talked about a lot is ammonia. Yes, the stuff that you put in cleaning products, like the stuff you use to clean your toilet. And I am interested in the nightmare of marketing a vehicle that says, well, the fuel you put in here is the stuff that you put in the cleaner that you clean your bathroom and your toilet with. But that's another issue. At the moment, as I said, there aren't any hydrogen refilling stations available. You can't just drive into a service station and say, I'll fill up with a tank of hydrogen. And there are no places where you can fill up with a tank of ammonia. But there are some big issues with ammonia. Yes, it is a clean fuel because it contains no carbon. 3 atoms of hydrogen and 1 of nitrogen, I understand. If the chemistry is not right, someone can correct me there. So there are no emissions from the vehicle, but there are some drawbacks to using ammonia as a fuel. The first drawback is it has a much higher combustion temperature than petrol does. So that means you've somehow got to manage the temperature of the car so that the engine reaches a point where the fuel will ignite, but it's not so hot that the metal or the components in the engine will melt, because the temperature's reached the point where the metal starts to melt or starts to distort through heat of some sort. The second big issue is that there is a significant loss of power from an ammonia-based engine as compared to its petrol equivalent. That can be overcome apparently, and it can be overcome, if I've understood the science correctly, by using a combination of petrol or using a combination of hydrocarbon fuel, be it petrol or diesel, and the right mixture of air. So what has to happen is there has to be a very intricate system of getting the hydrogen, which is in gas form, into the cylinder, getting the right mixture of air, and also getting the right mixture of petrol, so that the fuel will ignite and the engine will combust. And the engine will start turning over when you turn the key, as it does when you turn the key or push the button in your car at the moment. And then that there will not be a significant drop off of power. So you won't be getting in your Toyota Camry that's powered by ammonia and thinking, gee, this one's as weak as water, it wouldn't pull the hat off your head going up a hill like the one I'm riding up at the moment on a motorcycle. I'm told again in the research that I've done that you can work around that by fitting a supercharger, which I guess puts in supercharged air to the cylinder, mixes it with the right amount of ammonia, mixes it with the right amount of petrol, and then the magic happens and the vehicle goes. But this seems like a very intricate operation, which is not to say it's not possible and can't be done. It's just to say that it seems like it's going to be a very technical operation to design the componentry to say that this is how this engine is going to work. As I said, you can't drive into a service station at the moment and say, well, I'll just fill my tank up with ammonia. You can fill up with LPG, you can fill up with petrol or diesel, and some places you can charge with electricity, but you can't fill up with hydrogen and you can't fill up with ammonia. And at some point in the future, and I don't know when that's going to be, and I'm not sure anyone else does either, but at some point in the future, the service station of the future will be your fuel of choice is available. If you want petrol, it'll be over there. If you want diesel, it'll be over there. If you want electricity, plug in over there. And if you want hydrogen or ammonia, it'll be over there. And all of those things will be separated from each other far enough so there won't be any fear of fires or explosions or things like that. But we're not there yet. So we're a long way from that point. Now, in regard to the ammonia engine, the more ammonia you add to the mixture, therefore to make the car engine cleaner, greener and leaner, the more ammonia you add to the fuel mixture, the less power is produced in the engine. So, as I say, that is a compromise somewhere that's got to be worked out. And in the process of trying to find out more about this, I discovered that there's a university in Japan that has been working on an ammonia engine since 2019, which is 5 years ago. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not a long time, I understand that. But in the 5 years, they've not yet been able to come up with a solution to the loss of power, the right mixture of ammonia, oxygen, and hydrocarbon fuel to achieve the outcome that they want. And in any case, if they do that, because the fuel contains hydrocarbons, there are going to be some emissions at the tailpipe, if I've understood everything correctly. So that's going to present a problem. So the point I'm making, I guess, as I said at the beginning, is if the electric vehicle is not the alternative, and I'm not by any means saying it is the alternative, I'm saying to people, well, what are the other options? 2030 is about 6 years away. 2035 is about 10 years away. Given that the time between somebody sitting in an R&D studio somewhere and saying, well, this is theoretically what we're trying to do, building a prototype, putting that into a test model, sending it around the track and getting it to do its thing till it could be proven to work and the engine doesn't explode or the thing doesn't fall apart or the wheels don't fall off or some other thing, and then making that a serious production model, 11 years, 5 years, 6 to certain years certainly may not be enough time to do that. So there are some thoughts about the alternatives to electric vehicles and how they might work. Thank you for watching. If you weren't that interested, I hope you enjoyed the scenery, and I'll talk to you again when I'm making the next video.